Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hi, everyone. Christina Eanes here. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Essential Skills for Humaning. For today's topic, we have allyship for people with power. And joining us is Julie Kratz. Welcome, Julie.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Yeah, I love having you back on. And we're taking this topic even deeper with your next book. But for those who had not listened to the previous podcast, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah. Oh, where do I start? I spent a good 12 years in corporate America, mostly as a people leader, someone, as I would say, would have power, positional power. And just always felt this kind of elusive feeling that I didn't belong, that the workplace wasn't really designed for me or people like me. And it was really born out of my own need that I started my own business 10 years ago, focused on allyship and helping people be more inclusive as leaders, as everyday, folks inside organizations. So mostly workplace inclusion. And our goal is really to facilitate inclusive experiences so that everyone feels seen, they feel heard, and they feel a sense of belonging. And that is a little elusive nowadays. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride over the last 10 years, as listeners could probably suspect.
Yeah.
But I really landed in the last year just with serious retraction in our industry. The need, I think, to engage people with power was always there, but it's really, really critical. And so that's where I'm spending my time and researching and writing and marketing, hopefully trying to reach those folks.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into current climate and the with power part, can we go ahead and define, and I know it can be individual, but essentially allyship overall?
Yeah, I kind of am a little playful about how I define it because I really think it's a choose your own adventure approach. There's no one size fits all. It's not a self-proclamation. So as long as listeners know kind of those guardrails to it, I think you create your own definition. And mine is supporting people that are different from you, different lived experiences, could be different identities, different backgrounds, different industries. It could be across age, race, gender, of course. But I think those pieces really got overly prioritized. And that's why we're seeing, some of the backlash is that people that didn't feel like they were of another race or gender or had quote unquote diversity in their background didn't feel like a part of this. But allyship is really about support for people, and not the support you want to give, but the support they need to receive. And so it's really in the eye of the beholder.
I like that. Yeah, support that they need to receive. And it's just a fellow human, whatever their need is.
Yeah, totally.
I love it. And how are we defining people with power? Because I know there's all kinds of power out there.
Yeah, and that was a big finding in my research, that people with power don't recognize their power. It often is not visible. We don't feel it because I open the book with we're swimming in these waters, and you don't know the water you're swimming in because it's just normal. It's what you know.
Yeah.
And power really feels that way to folks. So power could certainly be from a position. So if you have a C in your title, I definitely have power for obvious reasons, but also everyday middle managers, individual contributors inside companies. You have social influence, you have the ability to have your voice heard in a different way, especially if you are from more dominant group identities. And so really thinking about where is your power and how do you leverage it for good. It's the P word doesn't have to be bad. I actually think it's a very positive thing. It's a great chance to be an ally. It's how you use your power that really separates you.
Yeah, I have found that as well. One of our classes that we have is on influencing others. And a lot of people think, I'm not a manager, I can't influence others. And so we dive deep into the other forms of power, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have multiple forms of power.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so I run into that too. Yeah. Well, so before we get into maybe how people with power can show more allyship, maybe let's go into current climate. and think about, what does allyship look there, especially when some people feel like they maybe need to be covert allies. I don't where do we
Yeah.
go with this?
Yeah. There is definitely, I've been using the word covert, kind of quietly doing the work, not wanting to broadcast or get too much attention, especially under this current administration. And so there's this quiet, almost like quiet quitting of DEI and inclusion work right now, at the very time we need our allies more than anything. And so what I've found is that the words are changing, but the work isn't.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of downsizing happening inside companies, or kind of more embedding inclusion work into culture work, into engagement work, into HR and human resources work, which has always been a good thing. It was never meant to be this like bolt on. It's always better if you weave it into everyday practices and how we behave in
Absolutely.
systems that work better for some and work not so good for others. And so the words, I think the administration came up with a list of like 190 words we can't use. And even, inclusion was on there. Just, it seems very silly to me that people would want exclusion. And the cost, this is probably the biggest learning that I've gotten from early readers of the book, is exclusion costs everyone. It costs
Mm-hmm.
us money. It costs us lost ideas. We're not able to solve problems as deeply, and it causes human pain. And why would you want to work at a place where you're excluding people or you feel excluded? That's so anti-human.
Mm-hmm.
We absolutely crave a sense of belonging, and that never stopped in the workplace. And so just this kind of folding in of the work and kind of rebranding of the work. I spent a lot of my career in marketing, and I think about this as a marketing moment, that we're redefining what it is, and repositioning the language, which is not a bad thing, if as long as it's like a packaging update. It's not
Mm-hmm.
dismantling the whole package, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. One of my favorite quotes this year is Cisco's CEO said, everyone acts like DEI is all bad because of like 6 things. It means like 150, thousands of things to me. It's not all bad. Don't throw away all of it because one part of it you didn't like. And so that's the repositioning we're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and since we teach, I hate to call them soft skills, I like to call them essential skills.
Human
Right?
skills.
Yeah, we've had to go through a lot of our courses for certain clients, not all of them, right? But for certain clients, and really relate to why is this important for the bottom line? Like, why are good relationships with your colleagues important for the bottom line? Why is it important that people trust to speak up? So
Yeah.
we've moved everything focused on the bottom line. This is going to impact your sales, your profit, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The business impact. And that
Yes.
was something that was always an opportunity with our work. I think about, we always wanted to show the ROI of it. It's just messy, as you know, to
Yeah.
make human behavior change and knowledge shifts and confidence shifts. So we're doing a lot of like dashboards with our work of like, here's the knowledge before, here's the knowledge after, here's the confidence level before, confidence level after, ability to practice and do the behavior before and after. And what's that worth to an organization?
Yeah.
How does that impact your retention rate? How does that impact your engagement rates? How does that impact your innovation rates? And the more we can tie the work to those outcomes, the better off we'll be.
Yeah. I like it. So there's some opportunity here.
Yeah.
All right. So
Always opportunity.
always opportunity, right? So back to allyship for people with power. Where do you want to start with this? Strategies?
Yeah. The book. So I set out to write it in the fall last year for obvious reasons. It's like, something's off here. Thought I knew people. And so really just set out to be curious and didn't know what I didn't know. I had written a book about men as allies back in 2017 when like the Me Too movement, coincidentally, like my book was published the same day that hashtag blew up. So I was like, all right, let's get curious again. And I thought I was just rewriting the book about male allyship. And then I realized it's not just men, it's all people with power. It's white women, it's folks that don't have disabilities, it's folks that are neurotypical that don't understand neurodivergence. It's all sorts of things that people feel excluded by. And so how do we bring folks into the conversation that have access to power? And what I did, I spent 50 plus hours in interviews, and I think I have like 60 different sources highlighted in the book. But the real findings were kind of like 9 key things. And it starts with unpacking your fears. And that's a lot of fear. I think those DEI books were written assuming people were all in. Not so much. And they want to be in. They don't know what to do. And they're really afraid of screwing up.
Yeah.
They don't know their sources of power, like we talked about. That's chapter 2, is uncovering your sources of power. Benefits. You have to have a strong why to keep showing up in this work, especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
And allyship is really a continuous set of intentional actions. And so helping people kind of map out their role in the conversation is chapter 4. And then I talk about storytelling and perspective taking. And psychological safety is something that I'm seeing a lot of traction in my business right now. Thankfully, got certified in that last year. But when it's paired with perspective taking, MIT Sloan found it's far more impactful when those tools are paired, not just in isolation. And then the last set of chapters is really about systemic things, the less sexy pieces of allyship, but inclusive policies and what you should be considering, how to proactively develop your pipeline. I don't know any organization that's looking at their talent pipeline, especially of Gen Z and younger folks, and being like, they're exactly like previous generations. No, Gen Z is unwavering on their commitment to diversity and inclusion because of their upbringing. They grew up in the height of immigration. They went through Me Too, Black Lives Matter. They just have much more social consciousness than previous generations and more power with future labor shortages. And so that's really speaking to the business need. And then I wrap up with how do we start the conversation earlier, because bias is baked at age 12, our values, our beliefs, age 25, when our brains are pretty fully developed. So can't really change these things, but you can teach people how to work within those constraints. And so starting that conversation much earlier is something I'm passionate about.
Ooh. Am I hearing the next book there?
Well, I have Little Allies. A little side note, I have Little Allies, a nonprofit focused on facilitating experiences for kiddos and young people and youth workers that really spend time, summer camps. Obviously, our schools are a little rough right now, but
yes,
there's a lot of other places like after school programs, things like that, where kiddos spend time. And if youth workers understand, potential biases, inclusive space design is also something that's really important right now. And the more tools that people can have, the more we can set this generation up for success. So we don't have to do all this training later in life that's, I would love to say, hugely impactful, but feels a little too late.
Yeah. We don't have to do as much of the unlearning.
Which is really difficult. Our brain, cognitive dissonance, our brain does not like to unlearn things. It's very, very difficult to reroute those neural pathways. And so I know for me in my own journey, thinking I knew all the things. Of course I know how to be an ally. Of course I'm inclusive. And then you're confronted with the reality of like, well, you did this. This didn't really land. And so one of my favorite tools is just helping people understand intention versus impact. You can absolutely have a great intention and the impact could absolutely be negative. Those two things, it's very paradoxical. And that's also hard for a brain to wrap our heads around. It hurts. It's a lot of mental energy to be like, but I was trying to be a good person and it didn't land.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's a part of the journey. You will absolutely make mistakes in this work. If you're doing it right, you will get it wrong.
Yes. Yeah, if you're getting outside your comfort zone, there will be mistakes made, but then you grow. Yeah, I love it. So back to and I love some of the stories that you have in the book at the beginning on being scared and some of the anecdotes. Can you share a little bit more about that? Like speak to the people who are, I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. 2 studies that I found really helpful that have been done in the last few years is one, Hopewell, an organization that studies inclusion, found that 90% of people were either persuadable about allyship and inclusion or all in already. And the lion's share of that is the persuadables, meaning I want to be an ally, but I'm not sure how to be an ally. So these 10% naysayers are just being awfully noisy and loud right now.
Yeah.
90%,
Yeah.
it's silly. And then there was HBR published a white male leadership study, and 70% said, I have no idea what to do. This is not a conversation for me. Which is really disheartening, honestly, to hear numbers like that, because I thought there was an invitation, but that invitation either wasn't delivered or it wasn't fully understood. And so there's a lot of folks just kind of waiting and being very complicit and silent in a time when we need their voices the most. So there's three main fears that I unpack in chapter 1, and one is status threat. So it's kind of like, I'm rooting for you. Am I rooting against myself? And there's all risk, no reward. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to look weak. This is super vulnerable. Feels much harder than what the potential benefits could be. And also irrelevance. So Brene Brown, the shame researcher, found that with leaders, that fear of relevance is really one of the most compelling needs for our validation as leaders. And so if I feel less relevant because I'm supporting people that are different than me, it can really erode the ability to practice allyship. So I think it's really important to address these fears, and you can have the fears and still do the work. We need people to do it afraid. I show up a lot of times not knowing the answers. I don't have magic solutions. Christina, the number one question I get from folks is, how do I do it? Just tell me what to do. And I can't do that. Like,
It's not a checklist.
not how this works.
Yeah.
You need to think about what this means to you personally and professionally and how you want to show up. So giving people a plan, I'm a big fan of like an umbrella approach to allyship, mentorship, sponsorship, advocacy, coaching, challenging. There's lots of more roles than that, but those are the real essential 5. Pick one, start doing it. See what happens. And I guarantee the benefits far outweigh the perceived fears and costs.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and there's something here that I've heard, and I'm trying to figure out the words to say it, but I know there's also a fear in like not holding someone accountable because you don't know like their lived experience as a manager or so I'm almost, there's multiple things here. Like one, I heard someone who was holding back giving feedback to someone because they didn't want to come across as, because they were different, I think races, I think the situation was. And I was trying to tell them there's being an ally also includes like letting people know when they're getting in their way, understanding, their perspective and helping them navigate in the environment that you're in. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah. That's well studied and documented. People from historically marginalized groups are far less likely to get the feedback they need to grow, the stretch assignments they need, as we know, to grow in their careers and be promoted and increase their pay. We feel much more comfortable holding people accountable and giving feedback to people that are like us. It's called affinity bias, like me bias. And so I've felt that before, that I don't know how this is going to land. What if I offend them? Oh my gosh, they're going to think it's like a microaggression or, an exclusionary behavior rather than coming from a good place. And so there's talk tracks I write about in the book. Just opening up with, I really care about you and there's something I noticed.
Yeah.
Just from a place of caring, radical candor. You can be candid and kind at the same time. I want to talk with you about something and it's just hard. Let the air out of the bag. My favorite ally question, and this is really landing with early readers, is what does support look like for you? You don't know what support looks like for someone else. We presume that people want the same support that we had. And it's not the golden rule. Treat people like how you want to be treated. It's the platinum rule. Treat people how they want to be treated. And support for someone different from you is going to be different than the support you need.
Yeah. Well, and I love to, in what you just said, talking about intention and impact, you actually stated your intention. And I wish more people would do that. I really care about you and I notice something is getting in your way and I'd like to share it or whatever. Just actually sharing your intention.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And it almost always comes from a good place. So if you're afraid it's going to land poorly, that the impact's going to be poor, be very clear that you have good intentions from the beginning. You're not trying to be a difficult person. You're not trying to offend them. Feedback, that old phrase, feedback is a gift. If you see something in someone else that they can't see for themselves or don't see yet, it is unkind to not share it.
absolutely.
It's
And don't
selfish,
assume that they know.
right?
Yeah.
They don't know. We can't, the self-awareness gap, Tasha Eurich
Hmm.
has a book about this. And, 85% of people think they're self-aware. In reality, like 15% are, right? And I always ask people for guesses on those stats.
Uh-huh.
People really, really are surprised that it's so painfully low. It takes a lot of work to look hard in the mirror and see yourself through other perspectives. It's not easy to admit your weaknesses, your challenges, the things that you don't know yet. And that's what allies do really well is they kind of step into that space and take the first step so that others can take a step back and we can meet people where they're at in that
Yeah.
murky middle space. But getting people to that murky middle space is the problem.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and speaking of perspectives, you have a chapter on that. Can you share maybe some perspective taking from the position or from a position of a person of power?
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective taking. So taking on the perspective of someone that is different from you or has a different perspective than you. So again, when that's paired with psychological safety, when we can, feel safe taking risks, that is really powerful, that combo. And so what perspective taking to me is like, what do I not know yet? And
Mm,
that's a big word in allyship, yet. Just because you don't know right now does not mean that you're not going to know in the future. When you were a kid going to school, you learned a lot of new things. Why do we think we're going to stop doing that as adults? But there's this like stoicism that we ingrain into leadership that you have to have all the answers. You have to know what's right. You have to be on all the time. And that's so stressful. Like the
hmm
rates of burnout are absolutely unsustainable. I can't believe they're still sustaining, honestly. So if we just kind of let go of our own egos, what do I not know yet? Can I be curious just a little bit longer? Like just a little tiny bit? What does someone know that I don't know? How can I get to know them? And one compelling stat too is mentorship. So that's probably one of the most common ally roles. I think people think it's much simpler than it actually is, but good mentorship, the mentor benefits more than the mentee.
hmm
It feels good to be helpful. One last stat I found was Harvard's longest study on human happiness, dating back to like the 40s, found the number one correlated variable with happiness is the quality of your relationships.
hmm
And so, what a great invitation to be an ally. You want to be happier? Invest in your relationships. How could you be supportive, especially of folks that are different from you? Because that's how you're going to learn and grow.
I love it. Oh, anything else you want our listeners to know before we get to your products or services and your final piece of advice?
I think if you're waiting for an invitation, and a lot of people are waiting for an invitation, just do it. Just take a step. If you work in an organization that has employee resource groups, go to the next meeting, especially if it's of a different identity group than what you are. It's so fun to learn and to be in community with people that are different. Even if that visceral feeling walking in the door or showing up in the room is like, am I supposed to be here? Yes, yes. And those have always included allies. That is one of the administrations kind of saying you can't do things just for certain groups. Yeah, it was never meant for just certain groups. It was always meant for everyone. But the topics are centered on human issues. So that's one thing you can do. And I think the other thing you can do is just diversify who you spend time with. We have a lot of insulated like me networks. I know I did when I started this work, and it was really uncomfortable to confront that my network was very white, it was very female heavy, it was very entrepreneur heavy, it was very
Hmm.
caregiver heavy, like me. And as I broadened that network, I've just seen the rewards of it. I've learned and grown so much more than I would surrounding myself with like me voices.
Yeah. And we just need that, right? For innovation, for let's take it back to the bottom line, personal and professional.
And Gen Z. So, I mean, again, young people like are eclipsing baby boomers in the workforce. And very quickly, there's going to be a huge paradigm shift of our workforce. And they're unwavering on this. This is their majority non-white from a demographic perspective, LGBTQ, much, much higher than previous generations out in the workplace. Neurodivergence is much, much higher awareness with that generation. So get with the program now. It'll save you time. Like you have to catch up.
There we go. Change is coming. Awesome. Well, can you share a little bit about your products and or services and where folks can get a hold of them?
Yeah. So Next Pivot Point is my company name, and you can simply go to nextpivotpoint.com. There you can find the book, and we're offering a free downloadable workbook. It's a very action-oriented book. And so there's assessments, there's questions, and if your team's interested, we're also doing bulk order discounts. So if you have 20 folks or more for your next book club, employee resource group event, or leadership team retreat, it's a nice little fun treat that you can give folks, a tool that you can give folks. People don't usually throw books away. they keep them. Even if they don't read all of it, they'll usually start reading it. So I just encourage you to check out nextpivotpoint.com for more tons of free resources there.
Awesome. Okay, your final piece of advice.
Oh, Christina. When I was writing, and I'm rereading a bits of the book right now, and the introduction was probably the hardest part. It's always the hardest part to start.
Yeah.
And I have a subtitle in it that I just resonates with me. It's like, we want you seriously. So the title of the book, We Want You, was very intentional. Probably triggers Uncle Sam. And I have a mosaic of Uncle Sam on the cover. It's not the old image. It's a very diverse and inclusive image on purpose. But seriously, we want you. I'm very serious about this invitation, this ask. If you want to be a better human, if you want to be helpful to others, I don't know anyone that wakes up in the morning that doesn't want to do those things. You want to be relevant. You want to be helpful. You want to grow. This is really your invitation. Seriously, we really want you in this conversation, and we absolutely need you right now.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for joining us today, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
Transform your organization with Eanes Training. Our premier interpersonal skills training programs are tailored to enhance your organization's employees in communication, emotional intelligence, leadership, and more. We have a catalog of expert-led courses designed to meet the dynamic needs of today's workforce. With highly engaging in-person, hybrid, and remote sessions, we can help elevate your organization's performance and success. Learn more at eanestraining.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills, and until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.